Deputy Funchion, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. I have to say, I didn't think it would be possible to be angrier than when I watched that programme, but I have to say I find it extremely difficult to be sitting in this meeting. I don't feel like anybody really understands the seriousness of this, and very little mention of children, very little mention of the responsibility that both of your organisations actually have to those kids. I'm just disgusted, to be honest with you. And it's not the first time that we've seen Tussla in this situation. Back in 2017, you were in here in relation to foster care and all the issues there. Time after time after time, you're failing the most vulnerable people in this society, and particularly our children. And I honestly question whether or not you're fit for purpose, because I do not accept that there was no way, or there has to be some way that you could have intervened in those situations. What if we were here today talking about the death of children due to the fact they couldn't escape a fire because the shutters were closed and all the cots were crushed in together? What would you say to parents in that situation? And we rely on the Department of Children and Youth Affairs to be the watchdog of Tussla. In your opening statement in the first paragraph, you say that yet they have your full support. No even questions asked. This is why we're in this situation time and time again in this country, where there's some crisis and some tragedy and everyone throws their hands up and says it's terrible. But the same thing keeps happening because nobody is ever held to account or held responsible for these things. Now, I have a list of 16 questions, and I suggest maybe
respond to the first bit. I think it's really important that we put on the record that what happened and what we saw in those programmes we take absolutely, fully seriously, and we are acting within our full remit and power as a regulator. Okay, we've done everything we can within our power. And just to also state, just for an analogy point of view, when there is a failing in Tusa as perceived, does HICWA get called in to say that it's a failing on their behalf when there's a failing in Tusa? The regulator can only work within its power to address breaches of regulations. And I strongly feel that we are acting in the best interest of children within our powers, and we are committed to do so, continuing and continually.
The way the question was posed. Sorry, one second. Just in the way the question was posed, the response should be in generalities, please.
If you take it so seriously, have you met with those families in the last week? What communication has gone on with them since all of this happened? That's the first question.
To respond to each one directly, do you want?
Well, in fairness, there's a list of 16, so if you want, I can call them all out. Okay.
We can do back and forth, that's no problem.
Can I just stress?
I'll group them together, maybe.
Whichever you prefer.
For the sake of easy.
Can I just say, since the Primetime programme, we've had contact from 257 parents across the country.
Have you contacted them, or have they contacted you?
They have contacted us.
Okay, what contact have you had with the parents affected by the crashes in the programme last week?
What we have done is we've responded to all contact that we've got in relation to the
parents. Have you contacted parents directly in relation to those?
We don't have the names of the parents that are in the services.
So there's been no contact from Tussla to parents affected by the crash?
We don't have that.
It's a simple yes or no. Did Tussla contact parents affected in those 4 crashes? It's a yes or no answer.
Deputy, just in relation to the way we have, in respect of our child protection issues, our social workers have been in contact with the parents where there's an identified child, and that is the only instance where we can. We have no statutory remit in relation to our regulatory work to contact parents, as we've said throughout the hearing today. But in relation to individual child protection concerns, absolutely. And through the Early Years Inspectorate, we've been in constant contact with parents in respect of emails, phone calls. We've had very concerned parents on the phone. Our team have managed that very effectively.
People would contact you,
yes.
But you obviously didn't contact any parents. There's
no
communication from you to parents, any reassurance, any support, any what do you do if you're in a panic and you think you actually can't leave your child into this crash. Nothing like that has happened. Is that correct? Those with child protection issues, that people have contacted them, but they have not contacted the parents concerned.
No, he said he did.
We have. In relation to our statutory response for child protection, our social workers, absolutely, where there's an identified child.
Of the children in those 4 crashes.
Where we've identified child we have, and that's the only basis that we can do that. We have no legal powers to contact parents outside of that.
Can I just
sorry, there's a huge amount of questions here. So
at the very start is that we've got to work within the law and the rules that we're here on. So that's one of the things that we called out at the start was we don't have the capacity to garner all the information and all the parents who are in a particular crash and write to them around a regulation issue. Where there's been a child protection concern, yes, of course, in that case, where there's specific risk to a child, then communication is made with the parent.
Apart from the RTE undercover staff, was there other complaints received from staff working at hide and seek to Tusla, and how many complaints, if there was, were received?
Well, Deputy, we can't go into the specific details of any complaints coming in, but to our unsolicited information office, there were concerns coming in regarding hide and seek, all of which were treated seriously, risk rated and responded to appropriately, but none to the level of what was highlighted in the RTE programme, and certainly none with any specific details that the social work team could particularly act on. Sure. And it's also important to state that we actually have set up a parent line service for parents to contact TUSLA in respect of any concerns or any issues that they might have of what they saw in the footage in relation to their own children.
Chair, might I just add as well, given the Deputy's concerns about failure on part of Child Protection Welfare Services, I really want to stress again, I suppose, again, we did not have specific information on any child that would allow us to intervene from a child protection welfare perspective. When we get information, if it's received in a timely manner, it's clear, it's specific, it documents the details of the child, the harm that the child has caused, the impact on the child, and the person allegedly causing harm to that child, we can intervene immediately to protect that child. So and we've been before this committee on numerous occasions speaking to the fact that we have consistent good practices across the country in intervening where children are at immediate risk of harm.
Deputy, may I also respond to some of your opening remarks in that the anger you talk about, I think we all felt that anger, absolutely. But in terms of accountability and performance, we've been before this committee on a number of occasions around early learning and care and school-aged childcare. I attended with the Minister when you led out on the motion on early learning care a number of years ago. I think at every occasion there has been recognition by this committee that we have had a massive amount to do in terms of improving access to affordable and high quality early learning and care and school-aged childcare. There's been recognition by this committee and, as I said in that motion, that a huge amount has been done in a short space of time. There is a limited resource with which to do this, but the facts are that a lot has changed in this country, in this sector in a number of years, and I think, to be fair to everybody, we have to acknowledge that a lot has been achieved, but there is a lot more to do. And I can only just assure you that the Department is absolutely and utterly committed to continuing that work with the committee's support, with the feedback from the committee on further improvements. We're absolutely committed. We've committed to it in First 5. It's a priority for our Minister. It's a priority for our Secretary-General.
I accept, sorry Deputy Reverend, I didn't realise you were in the chair. I accept those points, and it's an area that I've raised in early years childcare. It's an area I'm very passionate about. But there is times where you need to ask difficult questions as well. And and it's our job here to represent those parents and those children. Yeah. They're the only voice that they have, because they can't get direct answers from yourselves. So, well, we are giving direct answers in that we have. But that's not what people are saying to us. I've been inundated. No, and I hear
parents, you absolutely.
And none of them are even in my constituency, and yet they're reaching out because they are trying to get information.
Okay, but I would say in addition to
they're sending us evening questions saying, "Can you please try to get the answers? Okay. When is someone going to talk to us? When are we going to be communicated? What happens if the branches closes? What do we do for alternative childcare?"
So what I would say is, in addition to what TUSLA have said, we have a city or county childcare committee all around the country. There's 30 of them. We have been in communication with those 30 CCCs, asking them to be available to offer advice. Parents like, in some instances, getting information from local people who know the local situation. Those 30 CCCs are aware of what is happening and are available to provide support. There is, because I can't obviously give the details of all of them here now, but there's a website called www.myccc.ie that gives parents the phone numbers, the email addresses for their local childcare committee, and they can go there if they have support, if they're looking for an alternative service, whatever information. And those CCCs feed any issues up to us that we actually need at policy level and at national level need to be able to address.
So just to add to that as well, parents have been in contact with us requesting us to meet with them, and we have set up the process that we will meet with parent groups as they come in. And just to affirm, we have received over 100 queries from parents to our unsolicited information office, which we are absolutely providing as much information as we possibly can within our statutory remit to those parents. But again, we will meet with them and provide any assurances or information that we can possibly require. Because we're very conscious, like TUSA is not just a regulator, we are a child protection agency and we're there to support parents as well. So we carry both hats and we take both very seriously.
So just for clarification, you're saying you will meet with parents who
Absolutely.
want to meet, and the childcare committees are the ones, have they like a dedicated person? It's not going to be where someone rings up and it's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. They know that this is their part of their duties now.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks for that. I just wanted to ask a few questions of the department as well, in relation to, like, from my point of view, it goes back to this, we're just looking at it in the wrong context, early years in childcare, because once you bring profit into it, you're going to have 12-cent noodles and watered down milk. We need to move away totally, and I accept that's more for the department than for TUSLA, but we need to move away from this for profit. The workers need to be valued in the sector. It's one of the most valuable jobs that is in this society. We totally trust them with our kids, and I would say 99% do an excellent job. And in fairness, what the show highlighted is where workers were trying to stand up for the children. It was actually the owner and management that were in question in those facilities. But they need security of income and secure contracts, not this, you're off, you're signing on in the summer. It's total chaos and it's not fair. So we need, if you want quality, affordable, accessible early years in childcare, which we all say we want, we need to take the for-profit out. And the Minister, as you're here on her behalf, you need to send this message back. She needs to step up to the plate in relation to that. Once you have profit in the situation, it is always going to be a disaster. Like, how do we know that the extra money that goes for AIMS, for example, is passed on? The extra money that's there for graduate is passed on. We don't know that. So we need to change that whole system, and I appreciate that's not going to be done overnight, but I would like to see the department being stronger on that, because you are the area that's supposed to stand up for children,
And look, all I can say is we are doing our very best to deliver the best possible outcomes for children, and I think there is evidence there of progress that has been made. You were absolutely right to raise the issue of profit. There is a difference, and I've heard one of the unions talking about it in recent days. There's a difference between profit and profiteering. We know that this country would not be where it is if it wasn't for companies running businesses and making reasonable profit. There's a difference between services, offering a good service to children and families, making a reasonable profit. I think we can all live with that. Yeah. And there is a horrendous then situation where some services are making massive profits at the expense of children, parents and of their staff. So we do have to look at that further. Just in terms of where we are in this country, if you look at the money that's gone into creating our early learning and care and school-age childcare infrastructure, there is no public service delivery. How we created access in the first place was we got a lot of money from Europe a number of years ago. The decision was made at that point in time to give that to not-for-profits predominantly. There was a lot that went to private as well, but the decision at that point in time was not-for-profits and some to privates. We are in a situation now where it's a private model, be it that a quarter of services are not-for-profit. Clearly, government can look at future policy in that area. But what we are doing with the current policy is we are actively looking at how we can work with providers to enable them make a reasonable profit, but work with them to control affordability and quality, etc. So we're actively working on that. The Minister actually will be making an announcement in the next few weeks on a chairperson to head up this new funding model. What you say about the workforce is totally and absolutely and utterly true. We know that it is really important that we value our workforce in order for children to get high quality services, and we are doing a lot on that. A huge amount of the content. In First Five, our commitment for the next 10 years is about professionalising the workforce, valuing the workforce. The Minister has called on the profession itself to deliver, to get a sectoral employment order, because that will, I suppose, mobilise the machinery of the state, the workplace relations, etc., the Labour Court, ourselves, the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, to address what staff are earning. Is it right that the average wage in the sector is €12 an hour, that a manager with 20 years experience is on €15 an hour? Is it right that the contracts are what you're saying, over 40% on part-time contracts, over 40% on seasonal contracts? We know that we have to address that. There's a workforce development plan that I'm chairing that has just had its second meeting. these matters we are making progress. The 117% increase in investment in the last 4 years, you know, that is helping, but we have a lot more to do. And I would call on, and I know that all those managers, all those owners of those 4,500 services, you know, I trust that they really want to work with us in partnership here and do whatever it is they can with their staff, where there has been investment, where we increased the ECHA capitation by 7%. You know, we do trust that service providers are doing as much as they can to pass as much of that on to staff. So it is a priority of our Minister. We will obviously give the feedback. It is a priority. On the specifics you mentioned, for example, with AIM, we do know that the majority of the AIM spending is going to, so we know, we have the facts that it is being used on the supports we want given to children. There is that inclusion coordinator, extra money. Do we know that's always been passed on? Do we know that the higher capitation we give for ECHA has always been passed on to staff? There's some question mark over that, and I absolutely agree with the question you've asked.
Thanks. I just have one, I think, other question for yourselves, and then just one or two more for Tusla. In relation to that parliamentary question, I know that parents took their child out of a hide-and-seek facility before any of this, well over a year ago, and raised their concerns with the various bodies. And I believe the parliamentary question was asked on the foot of that, but there isn't actually a Tusla response in that. Now, the copy that I've seen, so if we could get a copy of that, I appreciate you don't have that with you. I'd like to get a copy of that, and I'd like to know, because the Minister says in her reply back, she takes it very seriously, but there doesn't seem to be a follow-up, and I'd like to know what exactly was done since that parliamentary question was asked. If we could get a copy of that, whatever was in there.
Clerk, please.
Yeah, I might just say, because of the short notice, and we're delighted to be able to attend here before to assist with questions, but just with the short notice, I'm afraid I wasn't able to get my hands on everything. I had understood there was a TUSLA inclusion in it, but we will come back to you on that.
Thanks. Then I just have 2 or 3 others for Tusla. The audit reports that get published on the website in relation to childcare facilities, so if parents are starting out on that journey and want to see which might be the best place, what's the time frame for them? Are they done yearly? Or if you could just give us a bit of information on that. And then Fiona, you mentioned the consultative forum. Is there workers on that? Is there workers, representative bodies on that? Maybe you could just give us a little bit more information on that as well, please.
Just in respect of reports, they're published as they're finalised, so as soon as they've gone to due process and that they're factually accurate, they're published right away. If it's a more straightforward inspection, it can be done quite quickly. If it's a bit more complex, it could take a number of months before the report is published. What's actually just an interesting statistic that's came to my attention regarding our reports is that the hit rate regarding inspection reports before the RT Investigates programme is about 3,000 hits. For reports, it's actually at 37,000 hits in relation to our inspection reports. So in terms of heightened information, knowledge, like obviously what's happened, this is very distressing, but we got to build on it as well, and that there's heightened information out there, and that parents are now looking at our website, looking at reports, because they are an important source of information regarding making decisions.
So just really briefly, if for example there was a facility that had a breach in 2017, would you be able to get that information that year, or would it be, when would you actually get that information on a report?
Well, if it was 2017, it'd be most highly likely, it'd be very improbable that wouldn't be on the website.
No, I don't mean now, but let's say, would it have been in that year? Would you also get that information on your reports, or would it be at the following year?
It would likely would. So through a normal course of inspection, it would take, between the inspection being completed and a report being published, would probably take a couple of months. But if it's very complex, see, the issue is if it's a very poor service in terms of compliance, we conduct an inspection, we might then conduct a follow-on inspection to see if they've followed what we've looked for. So we do another check, we might do another one, so it becomes a cumulative report over time. So it could take a number of months before a report is actually published. And I know this goes back to the heart of what we've been talking about, how quickly we can tell parents and inform parents regarding concerns. And we do need to come up with some mechanism that can be supported. And we do fully understand that particular issue, and we really want to address that.
Chair, I also think it's worth noting that where a new service commences, obviously if it doesn't have a registration, that can be identified very quickly by a parent or anybody else. And obviously that raises an immediate question in anyone's mind. So where registration hasn't been given for a particular facility, and that would happen obviously in the case of a new or an opening service.
Yeah, thanks. Well, there's the consultative forum, and then I just have one really brief thing after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the consultative forum is for us. So who's the membership of the consultative forum? We have the Department of Children and Youth Affairs. We have the childhood professional representative there. We have the universities, so Play, we've representative from Play. Disability Authority. We have Early Childhood Ireland, who's the largest stakeholder group in the sector. We've Irish Language representative. And we also have a representative lead in relation to the County Childcare Committee. So we've all the key stakeholders that are in relation to the early years sector on our consultative group.
But is there any union representative or from
We
the
do
ACP?
have, yes,
You do?
yes,
Okay.
we do, yes, we do. Sorry.
The final thing then I just want to say is, as angry as everybody is, we obviously have to do something about this, right? So I want to know, what exactly do we need to do as the elected people to change this so that you can go in there and say, in that situation, where in the very least, where we saw the shutters down and cots crushed in, that you could say, we have to close this facility, and that also it isn't, that there would be some supports there for parents when that happens, because it's all well and good to say to close it, and we have to do that, I think, in situations where children are at risk, but there also needs to be, emergency supports there then for parents. So what do we need to do to make that happen? And that it's not going to take 700 months,
Yes.
and we're all sitting here saying it's tragedy.
It's a very important point, Deputy, and there's two overarching points. I think we just all need to reflect on particularly the children first piece regarding mandatory reporting, and what as a collective, as the state and TUSA, the department, what we can do to strengthen reporting in terms of mandatory reporting. But in terms of the powers that TUSA can have, we mentioned a few already, closing an unregistered service immediately, that would be really important. The ability to inform or contact parents within a legislative framework, and the ability to close services immediately where we have a grave concern regarding the health and safety of children. And if we could get those quickly through the legislative system, that would be of huge benefit to children and families.
Could I come in on that, Deputy, as well and say again, yes, absolutely, your support for the legislative amendments that the Minister is proposing to explore now and hopefully advance would be hugely appreciated. I think what's also required is that the First Five strategy, that 10-year strategy, we need to deliver it, because I think, and I spoke to a major organisation in recent days who said that they had cross-referenced everything that parents are talking about at the moment with First Five, and First Five captures everything. If we implement First Five, we will have completely transformed this sector, every element of it: access, affordability and quality. So support of every government department that's involved with First Five would be hugely beneficial. And I suppose finally, children first. It is really important that we continue to raise awareness of children first, and that's one of the positives that will come out of this, is that I think all of this attention is reminding everybody of their responsibilities with regards to children first, both frontline workers, managers, policymakers, everybody. So yeah, they're the three that I would say. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Deputy Funchion. Senator